would you all now give a very warm welcome to Marcus Mumford?
Hello, how's it going? I brought some friends with me. This is so fancy. Yeah, my name's Marcus Mumford. I play in a band called Mumford & Sons. We've been... Christians are great liars. We've released 3 albums and been touring for the best part of 10 years. I'm married to the love of my life, Carey Mulligan, who's an actor. You might have seen some of her films and plays. We have a wonderful daughter called Evie, and we spend our time split between, when we're not working, London and a farm outside Exeter. You might also have seen my mum causing mischief here a few years ago. The old battle axe. My wife and I are also global ambassadors for a charity called War Child, which helps look after children in conflict areas. And in this capacity, over the last few years, we've visited refugee camps in Jordan, Iraq, and Gaza, as well as other projects in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Central African Republic. It was on my way back from my first War Child trip in Jordan that I passed through Jerusalem and happened to meet my friend Robbie Damelin, who's here today. And it was in Central African Republic in October that I met Tatiana for the first time. And I'm here to interview these 2 personal heroes of mine. But first, by way of introduction, I really love Jesus. I always have, and I always will. And I feel... And I feel we live in a time of heightened hostility, whether it's the increasingly divisive political atmosphere here in the West, or the more catastrophic human disasters and conflicts further east and south of us. And of course, we ask ourselves what it is we should do. And I, like many of you, would want that answer to be informed by what Jesus thinks. And of course, you know that when a teacher of the law came to Jesus and asked him what the most important thing that he should do was, he responded in the most clear and succinct way he did to any question he was ever asked, even in his parabolic prime. He said, love God and love your neighbor. So alongside knocking on our actual neighbors' doors and learning their names for a start, I felt I could learn a lot from listening to people I was lucky enough to meet who were actually doing it, being good neighbors, being peacemakers. And I'm totally honored that 2 of these people are here today, so that's why we're here. Nikki and Pip, thanks so much for having us. First of all, may I introduce Mrs. Tatiana Viviane Maruba from Bangui, Central African Republic. Tatiana is the director of an organization called Femmes Hommes Action Plus, a beneficiary of War Child, looking after the victims of conflict, most especially women and children. For those who might not be familiar, by way of a really brief summary, Central African Republic, or CAR, has been ravaged by years of conflict with the Lord's Resistance Army in the southeast and ongoing sectarian rebel violence across the country. Today, Amnesty says more than 2.3 million people are dependent on humanitarian assistance in CAR. So Tatiana, first, welcome.
Thank you.
You came all the way from Bangui.
Yeah, my name is Mrs. Moruba Tatiana Viviane. Please forgive my English. Yeah.
Tatiana, can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, I called myself a community volunteer. I humble myself to that level because my country needed people like me, most especially many women and men that can lay their life down for the oppressed one, which are children and women that are going through a lot of suffering during the conflicts. So this is what I do as a community volunteer, and I work in my own organization, which we have our objective of bringing out and raising up the voices of the voiceless. You can only do that when you have the Spirit of God in you. And I had that as a compassion. I have compassion for these people. I don't care about myself. I could walk like other women, but I decided to do that because there is this gap. The grassroots community that does not understand what they are going through. They just wake up with conflicts without any knowledge, and they don't know how to handle the conflicts and all the impact of the conflicts. It is a very huge task, more especially in a country that is very rich with natural resources, but surrendered by countries that are having a lot of political problem and security problem. So it makes it difficult for the civilians to face those issues. Sorry, I talk so much.
No, it's great. When we visited you in Bangui, you introduced us to 4 ladies who you've helped them set up a catering business, all of whom were victims of the conflict. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what you do with them?
Yeah, in my organization, to capture the story of what the people are going through for advocacy purposes, we always do documentation of success stories. When I say success story, you might think it's ordinary good success story, but stories of people that live with the trauma, live with pains, that manage to cope with life. So these women, they've become my family and the children. Most of them, they witnessed the death of their parents. They were there when their husband has died, and they are left with a lot of charges without any help. And most of them have some vulnerable disease. And in my organization, we have our center. That center also is a community center which assists these women and children affected by the conflict. We document their issue, and I am so happy to see that in this part of the world, there are a lot of organizations that are working for these humanitarian sectors, but few are ready to see what the grassroots community organizations are doing. But I'm very proud of World Child UK. And I'm so proud of Conciliation Resources, which sees the seed of reconciliation and forgiveness and community reconciliation, which is very important, and they support us to make sure that we raise awareness. Through a project, Forward Foundation, we are able to train about 200 women affected by conflict in various vocational training. And those that do cafe, I had them with me because most of them, their level of trauma need attention. I work in the office, I do counseling, I train some of the women to become also counselors.
Can you, you told me a story of a woman who we'll call Françoise for these purposes. Can you tell us a little bit about her specific story?
Yeah. If you have never heard a hard story before, we advise you to just pray after listening to this story. Do not take it personal. Do not take it as a problem that you can just solve now, but you need prayers and your support. I started this journey 8 years ago, but the conflict started in 2008 in my country. There are a lot of conflicts, ongoing conflicts, and many different types of rebel groups well armed in my country. Though I work with all the survivors, but I just find interest in working with these particular survivors, which are the Lord Resistance Army survivors. Because before you get to that place, it took like 3,000 kilometers off Bangui. And in those places, there is this problem of border controls, and the government is absent in those places, And the people found themselves not as Central African Republic. Some of them feel like maybe I'm from Sudan, I'm from Congo, because I've never seen any person from the government to come and assist us in those issues we are facing. So during the visit and the workshop we had with the returnees, we call them returnees, we call them winners, because those are the people that were captured by the Lord Resistance Army. Some of them might be maybe at the age of your daughters, 6 years. When the girl is taken to the bush, she might return after 10 years. And when your daughter returns, she will never like to stay where she were born because of the shame. Because we have this, our culture. It is a taboo for a woman to share in the community or to any other person what she's been through with the rebel in the bush. So this particular woman, she came to our workshop one day telling us that, listen, I listened to your program through radio in the bush, and I heard the voice of a woman like me, which testified how the community welcomed her back after all she's been through in the bush. In those places, because of the culture, if a woman is taken inside the bush, everybody knew what has happened to that woman. They might force you to have as a husband, if you are 40 or 60 years, a boy or 17 years as your husband in the bush. And it is not just one person that will rape you every day. And you have to go through all this in a daily basis. And you have to go to the bush and look for food to feed the rebels. Also, you don't need to become pregnant, because if you are pregnant, they will beat you until the child abort. You have to just to be there ready for the rebels. So this woman, they came to her village, met her with her husband and her 2 sons. Her name is Françoise. Françoise was very afraid because of the LRA, and the LRA asked her to kill her husband. She said, please kill me and release my husband. And her husband said, you have to do it for the sake of the 2 sons we have and your life. So she used mortar. You know what is mortar? And hit the husband in the head until she killed the husband. After she must have killed her husband, they gave her a knife. Could you pieces the husband and cook the husband now? So she pieces her husband, cook her husband. Along the side, one of the rebels said, it's like the soup you are cooking is not thick. We need to eat something that is very thicker. They just take a baby from another woman, hit the baby on the orange tree, kill the baby, give to this woman, gave her a mortar, pound the baby, put the baby as, passed in the soup so that the soup could be thick. And she ate her husband with her children, with everybody and some members of the community. Then they raped her before everybody, took her to the bush, and she stays in the bush for about 10 years. It was the message of awareness, of forgiveness, because we work with the community. We told them, when your child do defection and return back home inside your community, welcome your child. Give her a food, give her water, give her a place to sleep. When she feels very comfortable inside her community, she cannot be able to go to the radio, speak to other women that are still in the bush with the rebel. Because to them, they feel so ashamed and guilty of what they have done, what they forced them to do. I kill my husband in my community. How could my people accept me back again? So it is very difficult, more special with our culture. In an ordinary manner, when a husband died, they will accuse the woman. Now that you kill your husband, most of these women, they prefer to go to a town that no one knows them and live their life there.
So when we were together in Bangui, you told me this story, and then you told me that you just gathered a number of local community leaders, faith leaders, prefects, and mayors who came to Bangui to meet and do one of your workshops, and that you brought Françoise with you. And at the beginning of the workshop, these men said to you, there's no way we can forgive what the rebels have done to our communities. And then Françoise told her story. And what happened then?
Yeah, our leaders, we all have the capacity to forgive and forget. It came personal. Yeah. During the workshop, because what we usually do, we make sure the religious leaders and some of these decision takers and the traditional rulers participate always in our events. So they were there, and as I saw that the discussion was turning around no forgiveness and so on, I just tell Françoise to share her story. But by the time Françoise finished telling her story, and Françoise said, upon all I've been through, since I returned, I don't have home, I don't have anything doing, but I'm happy to give counseling to many women because I knew that if I, Françoise, could forgive the LRA, they will never kill many women in the bush. And I have to forgive the LRA. Still, I still wait for my 2 children that are still in the bush with the LRA. But I've forgiven the LRA. When the leaders heard that, they say, yeah, if Françoise could forgive, I think we need to forgive the LRA. This is how we succeed in doing our community reconciliation.
Tatiana, thank you so much. We could and we have spoken for hours, but we don't have a huge amount of time, and I want to introduce Robbie Damelin to you, who I met in Jerusalem a few years ago. And Robbie, when you first told me your story, it really seared in my mind as well. So I was wondering if you could share some of your story, please.
Firstly, thank you for giving us this extraordinary opportunity. My father, all his life, tried to get me to go to synagogue, and I wouldn't go to synagogue. And now I find myself in churches, synagogues, mosques, something. I have an insurance policy, I think. So when the army came to tell me that David, my son, had been killed by a Palestinian sniper, it seems that one of the first things that I said is, you may not kill anybody in the name of my child. I wasn't even sure, I didn't even know I said that, and I only found this out much later. I knew almost immediately that I wanted to do something to prevent other families from experiencing this pain. Losing a child is an impossible situation. I'm a fixer, but I can't fix this. And when I go to sleep at night, there's an engraved message of pain in my heart. And when I wake up in the morning, it's still there. But what do you do with all of this pain? You can go on a path of revenge, except there is no revenge. And a religious Jewish man came to talk to me, and he said, I want you to come to a seminar in East Jerusalem, and I want you to spend time with Palestinian and Israelis who've lost immediate family members. And I said, thank you very much, that's not for me. I lost David. David, for me, was my best friend. David was studying for his master's in the philosophy of education at Tel Aviv University. David was part of the peace movement. So, you don't actually know who the person is behind the gun, and don't make too many judgments. You don't know why that person went and what he was doing there, and maybe he had intention of treating people with dignity and making his soldiers do the same. And this man was even a bigger bulldozer than me. You quite by now know that that's difficult. And I went to the seminar, and we were 140 Palestinian and Israelis who'd all lost children and immediate family members. And I looked into the eyes of the Palestinian women, and I realized, wow, it's the same pain. The color of the tears that fall on the pillow at night is no different. So maybe if we could get together and talk in the same voice. And maybe if we could start a movement that would change people's attitude and bring hope instead of judgment, this would be the best thing that we could do. And so I started to travel all over the world. This overtook my life completely. I'm now this one-dimensional character about reconciliation. I traveled, I can't begin even to tell you where I've been. Rock concerts, hip-hop affairs, and to the strangest places in the House of Lords and in Congress, and I thought I was really quite a big deal. And then I came home one night, and the army came to my door again. And when you hear that knock and you open the door and you see 3 soldiers, it's very frightening. It's like a whole déjà vu situation. What are you going to do with this now? Go away. And they said, we've come to tell you that we caught the man who killed David. And that's when it really became difficult. You see, you can walk around the world and you can talk about peace and love and shalom, salam, and all of these charming words that trip off your tongue. But do you actually mean it? And for me, that was a really big test. What would I do with this? Could I, in integrity, go around the world talking about this if I wasn't willing to walk the walk? I didn't sleep for maybe 3 months, really not. And then I wrote a letter to the family of the man who killed David. And I told them who David was, and I told them about the Parents Circle. The Parents Circle is a group of more than 600 families, and we believe that there must be a framework for a future reconciliation process as an integral part of any future peace agreement. Without that, all we will have is a ceasefire until the next time. And so I also said that we owed it to each other to meet. We owed that to our grandchildren and to our children. They deserve a better life than we have. And then, of course, I imagined the next day I would have a letter in my post box. I'm not known for my great patience. And I didn't realize there's no such thing as instant reconciliation. It's a process. It's a process of working on yourself and discovering if you're honest. Because you can say anything you like, but do you really mean it? And you go to sleep with yourself at night, and that's when you need to ask. And so I waited maybe 3.5 years, and I got a letter back from Thaya, that's the name of the sniper, who said I'm mad and I should not go anywhere near his family, and that he killed 10 people to free Palestine. But you see, I knew that he'd seen his uncle very violently killed by the Israeli army when he was a child. And he lost 2 uncles in the Second Intifada, the uprising. And so he went on a path of revenge. He never understood, and probably nobody ever told him, there's no revenge for a lost child or for a lost uncle. There's nothing you can do. I promise you, I would dance on the stage, and I can't dance, if I knew I could see David for another minute just to say hello. But the most extraordinary thing happened to me when I got this letter. I discovered that I was no longer a victim, that I was free. My life was no longer contingent on what Thaya would decide to do, and that meant that I could continue to do with what I was doing. And yes, of course, I still wanted to meet him. Off I went to South Africa. By now, I suppose, she complained about her English. I suppose you don't like my accent either. What can I do? Can't get rid of it. And so I went to South Africa, and I met many people from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission who had given evidence, both perpetrators and victims. And I watched one of the worst perpetrators of the apartheid times, a white Afrikaans man, washing the feet. Within the last talk, it was about washing the feet of a black woman to see if he could find a way to her forgiveness, perhaps, I don't know. And then I came back to Israel, but I'd met, no, I'm fine, thank Please, I just wanted to give you a little tip. If people cry, and don't bring them water, and don't give them tissues, let them cry. It's sometimes the most cathartic healing purpose that you can do for a person. I know it makes you feel uncomfortable if people cry, but don't feel uncomfortable. Give them that gift of allowing them to experience their pain. And so I met Jin Fourie. I met Jin Fourie, a South African white woman, because I was looking to understand what the meaning of forgiveness is. What is forgiveness? Is it giving up your right to justice? Is it okay what the person did? Should you forget them? Or should you forget what happened? How can I forget my child? And I went to meet her because she had gone to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission after her daughter was killed. And she said to the people who killed her daughter, I forgive you. And I wanted to know what she meant. And she said, forgiving is giving up your just right to revenge. And then I met the man who had sent the people to kill her daughter. And he said, and this take away with you if nothing else, by her forgiving me, she has released me from the prison of my inhumanity. And I think that's an extraordinary way to end this story. Thank you very much.
I wanted to bring you together because I wanted to have a conversation really about being a good neighbor, but it seems like this theme of forgiveness is something you share so intently. And Tatiana, you once said to me, people have to accept forgiveness. When they don't forgive, their level of trauma grows. Forgiveness needs to be an experience, but you can't force it. If you force someone to forgive, it will never last. And just briefly, because I know we're running out of time, do you think you can teach forgiveness? And where does it come from?
Yeah, I think you can teach the people the way of the forgiveness, but you can't force the people to forgive.
Please, Tatiana, that's such an important thing that you said. Because if you force people to forgive, that's immoral. It's something that people must come to by themselves. You cannot teach people to forgive. It's an enlightenment that happens when you forgive yourself, and then you can forgive others.
And Robbie, what have you done when you've come across people who have refused to forgive initially?
I don't think it's for me to decide that somebody should forgive. I think it's enough almost now for the people who belong to our group to say, end the occupation, to say, please don't take sides, because actually if you're pro-Israel or pro-Palestine, you are just importing our conflict into your country and creating hatred between Muslims and Jews. I don't think that's what you want. You gave me that opportunity. Thank you.
The first time we met, Robbie said something along those lines to me, and she said, you know, I was quite a another proud bullshit white guy coming into Israel and Palestine with ideas, and she said that to me and said, please just listen, because when you listen, you give dignity to my humanity. And it really humbled me, and I'm on a path of listening, and actually, as Jean Vanier just said, you know, leadership is listening first, and that felt really relevant. So we have run out of time, but we have loved listening to you. Thank you so much for coming. We are here. I'm just a representative of one of thousands of people who have been moved and overwhelmed by your courage and your work as good neighbors. And we salute you, we support you, we honor you, and we're really grateful to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.